Добрий день, друзі. Вітаю вас, Медіа-центр Україна.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Media Center Ukraine continues its work, and now we have Natalia Humeniuk with us, Captain First Rank, head of the Joint Coordination Center of the Security and Defense Forces for South of Ukraine. Ms. Humeniuk, you're welcome. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Ms. Humeniuk, please tell us what's going on in the south and in the Black Sea region. At the moment, the situation there is indeed very tense because the enemy has been bringing its additional forces and tries to strengthen its positions, and dreams of moving forward in our region in Kherson to the boundary of Mykolaiv Oblast to take control of the positions they lost. But we don't allow them to do that. Our forces continue maintaining that territory and maintain some political and psychological hygiene, so to say, in that territory and maintain their positions. Kherson Oblast, there are explosions every now and then. We hear multiple launch rocket systems, artillery shelling. We know that the enemy does not only carrying out some propaganda, but there are mass-scale provocations prepared for that so-called pseudo-referendum the occupiers are going to carry out in Kherson Oblast and bring their equipment to start some shelling and then accuse the Ukrainian armed forces of that shelling. But we also implement our information policy for people in Kherson Oblast, even those occupied territories, even where our radio is suppressed, even where communications are suppressed, our people, civilians should still receive information about our army. And I would like to thank the residents of Kherson Oblast for confidence in us, for trusting us, for understanding that we don't shell on towns and villages where occupiers are hiding behind backs of our innocent civilians. So there is combat action in Kherson Oblast, in parts of Mykolaiv Oblast. The enemy is shelling against us. We also have something to respond. This night we destroyed 2 multiple launch rocket systems of the enemy. Those were shelling Mykolaiv, which was shelled this last night. Unfortunately, there is very dense shelling. The enemy also uses high explosive projectiles to make maximum damage. At the same time, there are humanitarian problems with water supply, for example, in Mykolaiv Oblast, and the enemy tries to make the maximum damage to demoralize our people, but we are together, we are strong, and neighboring oblasts like Odessa Oblast help each other. Odessa Oblast helps Mykolaiv Oblast, and there will be assistance with water supply, and altogether we will stay strong and we will be able to win over this invasion. Now about the Black Sea area of operations, the group of ships which has both missiles and landing ships, they have been maneuvering, looking for new positions. We understand that the landing operation is something that those sick brains of those Russian commanders still consider, so we don't exclude it. We keep our defense forces on the coast. Also, we understand that there is a possibility of rocket strikes, missile strikes, because there is quite a significant number of missiles on those ships. So we keep reminding civilian population, civilian people, that they should not neglect their alerts. Natalia, we saw that after Moskva cruiser was sunk, there were reports that occupiers' ships have moved from Odessa. Is this the case? Yes, indeed, we have seen certain movement of their ships further from the coast, and in military terms, in strategic terms, it's quite logical. After such physical and moral defeat, it had to be done, probably to bring their personnel into order. You know, people who they saw it with their own eye. Those people who were part of a ship were on board ships in that group. You know, so that's something not for weak people to see. So we understand that their personnel, their seamen have been quite demoralized, and they need some time and they need some training to bring themselves into order, but will not stop. We see their movement, and we see that even though they move further from the coast, it still does not exclude missile strikes. Ms. Humeniuk, yesterday we saw that there was very serious shelling in Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv Oblast, as reported by residents of Mykolaiv Oblast. Is our understanding correct that that shelling is done from the territory of Kherson Oblast, which has been occupied by Russians? And can you confirm it? And what's the situation there at the moment? Because we understand that Mykolaiv Oblast has been under constant shelling. Have there been any changes on the map by now? We would like some huge changes, but we don't have them as yet. The defense lines move every now and then, and the balance of forces changes all the time. But we continue our defense, and we continue making some counteroffensive actions if the current situation supports it. Now we know that shelling is done from the occupied parts of Kherson Oblast and part of Mykolaiv Oblast. Now Kryvyi Rih district was shelled in the night time. At the moment, fortunately, by now we don't have any information about losses among innocent local civilians. And you know, infrastructure, residential buildings. We just, expect that local residents will take some security precautions when they get information about such shelling. Ms. Humeniuk, could we say that tactics of Russian armed forces are the same all across our territory? And first of all, the enemy targets, hits local innocent civilians and civilian infrastructure. We see that the tactics used by the enemy is to destroy Ms. Humeniuk, we cannot hear you. We are checking the connection. We are trying to restore it. Yeah, can you hear us? Yeah, hello, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Now, we were talking about, can you hear us? Yes, we can hear you. We see that tactically the enemy tries to destroy everything which has some sign of Ukrainian nation, Ukrainian way of life, and well-being of our country. So indeed, strikes against the critical infrastructure in order to provoke some humanitarian catastrophe in the region. Strikes against civilians, against residential districts in order to scare and destroy and demoralize our civilians. Strikes against military infrastructure, and it's about panicking. They try to destroy forces that could counteract them. But since we understand, that we have taken rather successful measures to minimize that impact. Of course, we cannot completely eliminate it when there is a mass-scale shelling, but we can minimize it, at least minimize the consequences. We could evacuate the residents, we can relocate some facilities, and so on. So the war continues, and we'll make every effort for this war to end with our victory. Ms. Humeniuk, over the last day, we keep hearing about the second stage, second phase of offensive operation by the Russian Federation. We see that situation aggravates in all parts. Do you feel it? Have you seen higher activity of the enemy in the south? Yes, indeed, we have felt some activity. You have already mentioned yourself that Mykolaiv Oblast has been under new wave of strong shelling, and it's clear because the enemy really wants to move forward, and they want to somehow scare our population, and who want to believe in our armed forces. They want to persuade people that everything will be destroyed, but our actions, by our armed forces, persuade in the opposite, that we will never surrender, and we will continue carrying out operations which will soon bring positive results. Thank you, Ms. Humeniuk. Thank you for finding time and joining us. And there, thank you for your service. Dear friends, please stay with us. I'd like to remind you that at 3 p.m. we'll have here in our studio offline Alexander Motuzyanek, the spokesman of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, who will tell us about the latest operational developments on the front line. So stay with us. Thank you.